In this video, we'll take a look on how you can save full 40% of electrical energy and a lot of heat and a lot of noise during freeze drying. If this is interesting for you, then stay tuned and watch. What is the part that makes the most noise and heat during freeze drying? Yes, it's the pump. Most people use an oil pump, some people use an oil-less pump. But anyway, it will make a lot of noise and it will waste a lot of energy. Now what you see here is a so-called solenoid-valve. It's a valve that will let the pressure, the vacuum, into the freeze dryer, into the cool trap, and it will not let the pressure go out of the freeze dryer, go out of the cool trap. Using this part, we will do the trick. Because imagine you can just turn on the pump for a minute in the evening and then leave it off the whole night, and next morning your vacuum is still there. Before we go on seeing the solenoid valve in action, I have opened the solenoid valve so we can see what's inside. Generally, the solenoid valve is always closed. Only when it gets electrical power, and it will get this through the pump, that's why it's connected to the pump, then it can open. Therefore, if I switch off the pump, the solenoid valve will automatically close in less than a second, in much less than a second, and therefore the vacuum will stay in the cold trap. Now that you have seen what's inside the solenoid valve, take a look on the connection between the solenoid valve and the pump. This is the black cable that you see here. Here you can see how the solenoid valve is connected to the electrical power of the pump. But hey, this connection will have the solenoid valve permanently open. Why that? The reason is that the solenoid valve is not even sold as energy saver. Officially, it's sold to prevent dirt from the cool trap to enter the pump. That's what they sell it for. They don't sell it as energy saver. And that's why it's badly connected. So on this picture you can see that I'm using an external switch that will overcome the problem. If I switch this off, both the pump and the solenoid valve will be without electrical power. And this is what I want. Both have no power, and this means cool trap is closed. Before I will show you the solenoid valve in action, let me explain the most important parameters of the freeze dryer display in this example. The most important value when freeze drying is possibly the amount of vacuum. On my machine, the value ranges from 999, which means there's no vacuum, to at most 15, for example, which means the maximum vacuum the pump can make has been reached. So the higher this value, the less vacuum we have. Then there are more important points. That's the cold trap temperature and that's the shelf temperatures. These are the most important points to watch. About the cold trap temperature, you can see during the process that when we increase the vacuum, sometimes the vacuum will not increase. It will just stay at one place and instead the cold trap temperature will rise. This means the cold trap will get a higher temperature. This is typically a sign that due to the higher degree of vacuum, we get so much moisture out that the cold trap gets warmed up by the moisture that was warm and now goes onto the cold trap and becomes ice on the cold trap. Okay, we have a vacuum of 197. It could be more, so I will switch on the vacuum pump. Pump is starting. Now let's see how the vacuum develops. Okay, this means 80 around is possibly okay. So I'm now switching off the pump. Now let's see what happens. Here's the switch. And this is the... Did you hear the shot plug? And now let's take a look on the vacuum. Okay, we are still at 79. So even though the pump is not more running, the vacuum just stays at 79. And this is why the solenoid-valve is a deal breaker. It makes the vacuum stay without having the pump running all the time. So here you can see my pump in a temperature photography, and this is the best way to find out if the material is already dry or not. Here you can see the freeze dryer and the shelves, also in heat photography, and you can clearly see that the cool trap is very cold and the shelves get heated up. Now here you can see how you can most easily find out if things are really dry or not. You go with the indicator on the material and you check for the temperature difference between the dark blue spots and the light spots. And if the temperature difference is very small, then the material is dry. If the dark blue spots show up to be very cold, then the material is not yet dry. Finally, there may be some questions still open. Let me try to answer them. First, where can you get such a solenoid valve? And this depends on the supplier of your freeze dryer. So ask simply the supplier of your freeze dryer if he can give you the solenoid valve. Second question, can you use an automatic program with the solenoid valve? Answer is possibly no. Currently I don't know any automatic program that will support the solenoid valve. Because of the way the automatic freeze dryer programs work, it will not support the solenoid valve. So using the solenoid valve, you do manual freeze drying, you manual switch on, switch off the vacuum pump, and you manually set the temperatures of the shelves. If you generally run your freeze dryer automatic, you may not be able to really utilize the solenoid valve, because technically the automatic programs of the freeze dryer detect the amount of vacuum, and from that they change the amount of heating to the shelves. And if you switch off the pump in the drying process, and that's what I'm doing here, this will confuse the automatic drying process. So currently there's no automatic process that supports the solenoid valve, and hopefully they will do something in the future. Now finally I want to share something with you. If you look into the cool trap and watch the ice crystals, then you will see that ice crystals that build without the pump running look different. Take a look on these ice crystals in the cold trap here. You see, we have a lot of larger ice crystals. It looks like in a crystal cave somehow. If the pump is running all the time, the cold trap and the ice looks quite different. You can see that it's not this much crystals. Instead you get a more unique ice form, which doesn't have that much ice crystals as you see it now here. I will see if I can add some pictures here that demonstrate this.